Hey everybody, it's Casual Boobs coming at you with another video, and this is going to be a little bit different than normal videos because this video is about the AMBT, and normally I would show you gameplay footage of it, but I do not have that. I haven't been given the tank. I don't know how to, I haven't played it, can't play it, but I would normally never do this because what is the point of this video? But I figured I'd give you some quick impressions of the stats of the tank and what it would look like and what it would feel like and stuff, and a lot of this is going to be tanks GG, and I'm sorry for that. I normally try to aim a little higher for the content that I'm able to give to you, but it is speculated that this will be in the auction, and I figured at least somebody would would like having some thoughts. So here are some thoughts. I will say you can look at this in tanks GG, but according to Harkonnen on the Daily Bounce, the stats have been changed in the latest micropatch that you probably have just downloaded today if you're watching this when I release it. And so some of the stats in tanks GG are different and they are better, right? So the shell velocity, let's see here, the reloads have gotten reduced ever so slightly, aim time got better, and the DPM got better. So with that in mind, we just know that these things are a little bit different. But I'm going to compare it real quick to a Renegade because I don't know, it seems like the right play. They seem somewhat similar, right? So 215 standard pen is going to be fine. It also gets a premium round that's another APCR round that's 278, which is incredible. Yeah, that's really good. And the Renegade premium round is 255, which is good. I mean, yeah. So the AMBT getting 278 is remarkable. That's really good. So yeah, but the standard round is also fine. 215 is fine. DPM is a little bit on the lower side because it's an auto reloader, right? So if you have you have 3 rounds, right, and a 3-second intra clip, but if you shoot one, you will have a short reload, well, relatively short reload, and then you'll have 3 rounds again, and so on and so forth. It's just like the Italians if you haven't played those. It's unclear whether this will have the compensation mechanic that the Italian heavy tanks have, which I find to be mostly useless. But anyways, it's got a 105 millimeter gun. The big thing here I'm noticing is that the gun stats are substantially worse than the Renegade. Of course, the Renegade has a really comfy gun. This obviously doesn't, right? So this is like, looking at this, it's like to get from 0.15 to 0.20, that's like a 30%, 40%, 40%. I don't know. It's way worse. This is way worse gun stats. And the final dispersion being the same, right? So that's, you can make the Renegade substantially more accurate with, V-stabs and improved aiming and so on and field mods and stuff. But the combination of the dispersion being this and the soft stats being this, to me, that says this thing is going to be on the derpy side, just by playing around with it. Mobility-wise, top speed is 40 as opposed to the Renegade's 45. And this one's a little bit harder to tell because the power to weight is higher, but at the same time, the terrain resistances are lower than the Renegade, so it's not really it's kind of a toss-up. It's hard to tell exactly what this thing is going to feel like. It seems like it should be like peppy, right? It seems like it should get off the line pretty quick with its decent power to weight. I mean, 18 is pretty good for a heavy tank, honestly. That's getting into medium tank territory and decent ground resistances. Sorry. However, being held back by the forward speed of 40 that's gonna be a problem, right? That's not ideal. So I think it'll be okay. I think mobility wise, this is not all bad news. I think you have to do some work to make it as fast as you might want it to be. But yeah, the armor we'll get to, and the rest of this doesn't really matter. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. The one thing, the 380 view range as opposed to the Renegade's super overpowered 400. If you have a Mivy, if many of you probably got boxes over the holidays and you have a Mivy has 380 view range, and you kind of have to work at it to make that view range okay. So like this is a downside, and it's a pretty big downside. So overall, it seems, there's some good stuff and some bad stuff. We'll talk about the armor here real quick. The armor is weird. This thing looks ridiculous. This is like if the Lava visual. If the Lava was an American heavy tank, look at the beak on this thing. Some things to note, right? You get 9 degrees of gun depression. Somehow with a beak like that, they managed to get the gun down 9 degrees. But you only get 10 degrees of gun elevation. right? And also look at this. Look at the physically look at how the gun is separated from the barrel, or the barrel is separated from the tank. But anyways, I'm assuming they'll figure that out before they release it, that visual bug. But it also doesn't look like it's physically possible to get that to happen. But I'm just going to ignore physics, and we'll just look at this in the gameplay aspect of things. 10 degrees of gun elevation is an underrated, like elevation is an, what am I trying to say here? Gun elevation is an underrated stat. People don't really look at it a whole lot, but it does come up more often than you'd expect, especially, and you know this if you've ever played a Manticore, because you'd be surprised how often it comes up where you're angling down, like your hull is on a hill, and you're trying to look up that hill to shoot something, and you freaking can't. So the French autoloader heavies have the same kind of an issue. The Manticore has an issue. So this, I think, the 10 degrees of gun elevation is going to be a very annoying thing to play around. It's something to keep in mind. Obviously, the side armor is Garbo. The frontal armor is actually okay. It's got this big, huge lower plate, right? That'll be hard to hide. And it's very, very weak. 100 millimeters of armor. 148. That means I think tier 6s can, like, let's just see. Let's just see. Can a tier 6, can a Fury? Penetration 128. All right. If a Fury taps 2, I mean, it's a tier 6 medium tank that's not really renowned for its gun. So here's an, yeah, if a Fury taps 2, you get the lower plate, you're good. It has this cupola, but a lot of this armor relies on angles, right? You're seeing the auto bounce, this incredibly well angled stuff. And I'll get to why that matters. It's not talking about raw thickness, it's talking about angles. So it does have a cupola. God forbid you get above this thing, and the roof is only 25 millimeters thick. So if you're ever able to look down at this thing, and you have a gun that's 25 times 3, you could triple overmatch, right? So calculator, 25.4 times 3, 76. If you have a 77 millimeter gun or higher, which I believe is a 17 pounder or higher, basically everything, you will overmatch the roof if you can see it, right? But you can't see it when you're sitting flat ground, or if they're using gun depression, you can't see it. But if you're looking, if you can see it at all, looking down at it, you're in, right? All day. Also, like I said, the angle really relies on armor, or the armor relies on angling. Sorry guys, haven't had coffee. This is an impromptu video. I just wanted to get it out. And this is only 40 millimeters thick. So again, 40 times 2, 40 times 3, 120. So any 121 caliber gun or higher, which is every Russian 122, every 152, is going to overmatch this, and we'll just, and so on. And so we'll show you what that looks like. You can't really side scrape because it's going to flatten this out, and also because of this beak, right? You can see this little beak thing in the front. It creates a shot trap, right? If you shoot this, it will bounce, but it will bounce down into the hull, which is why this looks like it's green, I think, or it's just heckin' weak. So like what I'm getting at here is the armor seems like against a lot of things it will be trollish, right? You'll have the cupola to shoot at, you get the lower plate to shoot at, and just shoot below the gun, and it'll go right in. But God forbid you compare against something that has a 152, like an IS-3, right? Go back to 2015 and compare everything to an IS-3. The IS-3 has a 122 and it overmatches. So this is game over. This is way less good. So and of course, you know, if you compare this against something that has a heat round, let's say like the I don't know, like what has a good heat round? A 112 shooting heat. Okay, so the 112 shooting heat, obviously that's not really renowned. It's 250 millimeters of penetration. Not really renowned for its penetration, but it's okay. But you could see the parts on the front where the angle starts to not work so well. You're going to go in, right? So that's because heat doesn't care about angles of armor quite so much. So it's something to keep in mind. And against, like, we'll just compare it again since let's 121 tier 10s. You're going to see tier 10s in this tank. This is what you get. It's not a lot. Especially if they're shooting you assume that everybody's shooting gold at you, and this is the result. You basically have cheese for armor. So it's something to keep in mind. Can the armor work? Yeah, and I'm sure that sometimes a 120, a 121 shooting heat's going to hit you right there, and he's going to bounce, and he's not going to understand what happened. But most of the time, when you face up tier opponents, you are going to die, or your arm is not going to work like it should. I mean, most tier 8s should not be able to just sit there and face tank a tier 10 shooting premium. So that's just something to keep in mind. The weird angles are really what keeps this thing alive. But even against same tier and even lower tier, like an IS, like it's all about caliber, right? An IS has a 122, a big silly 122 millimeter gun. Where is it? Here we go. So because of that, it also gets to overmatch this roof. Everything with a 122. Drive the point home. The tier 6 tank destroyer, the SU-100 has that 122. Same deal. So it's worth keeping in mind that the armor is troll, but not really reliable. Okay, so here, AMBT. Okay, it's a medium tank. That will explain it. It's not a heavy tank, it's a medium tank. I'm sorry, guys. I haven't done my due diligence because I normally get to play these things. So sorry for my rushed reply here. So, all right, field mods and stuff. What I would probably do is obviously the module durability increase. I'm going to get this down as low as it can. What is this? What is the camo like? I get this to reverse speed of 14. I don't think I'm picking either one of these things because I don't want to lose the reverse speed, and I also don't want to lose the camo. So we're going to keep it how it is. So this has the same crew layout as the Renegade and as the tier 10 American heavy tank. So that's good. The Radio Man is the commander. Unfortunately, that means the commander's got a lot to do, right? You got to train the situational awareness and so yeah, can't run a rammer because it's an auto reloader. So again, without playing this, I don't really know. I could see running a turbo to get to your top speed to 45. Because again, I compared it, I'm an idiot, and I compared it to the Renegade, which is a heavy tank, and it compared pretty okay, right? So it's going to move pretty slow for a medium tank, but pretty fast for a heavy tank. So the question is that acceptable for something that is actually a medium tank? Yikes. You know, if it's me, I would have probably preferred it to be a heavy tank, because then you could do an improved slot with the improved aiming, and then the V-stab. But this is probably where I would start. Right, to get the gun to behave, and maybe I mean, again, this is not ideal. So like if I'm guessing, this is probably where I will end up personally with it. And then have some maps where there's like, when this is one setup, and then maybe have one setup with optics or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. Again, I'm sorry for not being able to give you guys more substantial information, but this is what I have. If I could play it and show you, then I would, but I can't. I haven't been able to do that. But otherwise, I do think the thing will be fine, right? It doesn't seem like it'll be broken. It seems like it'll be certainly playable. It's not going to just roll over things, because you will be able to pen it in a variety of different ways. But a good player is going to keep bobbing and weaving and keep moving and stuff, and not be able to give you those weak spots all that easily. But that'll also make their gun kind of derpy too. So it seems at first glance, I think it'll be fine, right? Middle of the pack, fine to play. You're gonna have some great games in it. You're gonna get destroyed immediately sometimes. Artillery's gonna poop on it like they poop on everything. Doesn't seem like the most overpowered thing in the game. If you already have a bunch of premium tanks, then maybe you don't need another one. I don't know, but I figured I'd give this make this video, and hopefully if somebody thought it was useful. So alrighty, thanks guys, see you in the next one. All right.